Harley's last big trike was supposed to be the safety net, the bike that kept riders loyal and the company out of trouble. On paper, it was perfect. Premium price, safer, 3 wheels, and decades of Harley owners aging into it. In the boardroom, that trike looked like salvation. But walk into real dealerships today, and you'll see the truth. Those same machines parked right up front, gathering dust, burning floor plan interest, while riders quietly buy something else. In this video, we're going to break down how Harley misread its own riders, why the trike strategy failed in the garage, not the spreadsheet, and what it means for your next, maybe last, big bike. If you own a Harley or ever thought about a trike, watch this one all the way to the end before you spend a dime. What's happening? Harley rolled it into showrooms as a statement piece. A 3-wheeled touring rig wearing the Street Glide badge spoke loud. The message was clear. This was built for riders whose knees complain, but whose pride does not. Big fairing, full luggage, passenger comfort, no balancing a heavy touring rig at a tilted gas island. The idea was to give security without stripping away the Harley feel. Launch material that dealers saw leaned hard on that angle. Keep long-time owners in the family, even when 2 wheels start to feel sketchy. Talk about confidence at parking lot speeds. Talk about couples staying on the road together. Wrap it all in a familiar shape and sound. Inside Milwaukee, according to dealer contacts, the Street Glide 3 Limited sat in a special box on the product chart. Not a fringe experiment, a support beam. A way to hold on to aging touring riders, while the rest of the lineup tried to modernize. If this worked, it could buy time for every other decision. On paper, the pitch made sense to a lot of folks. Yet metal on paper is not metal in a garage. The real test waited at the dealership doors, and the answer there surprised more than a few managers. Hype versus walk-ins. Dealers hung posters and set the trike in the brightest spot on the floor. Sales staff brushed up on talking points about comfort and control. They expected a steady line of touring riders asking for a spin. Early demo sheets told a cooler story. In several stores, sign-ups came in slower than planned. Riders were curious, sure. They scheduled rides. They took the Street Glide 3 Limited around the block, maybe hit the bypass. Then many handed back the key and walked elsewhere in the building. Some went straight to the used touring row. A 2008 Ultra with honest miles felt safer than a new Note. Others drifted over to different brands that had been on their mind already. The jump from curiosity to commitment did not come easy. Regional chatter between dealers backed up the pattern. Interest was highest in retirement belt towns, where health and balance nagged more. In working regions, many riders still felt fine wrestling a 2-wheeler. They liked the idea of a trike, but not enough to trade in a paid-off bagger. That was the crack that caught attention. The model was not a flop. It simply failed to create the wave leadership hoped for. When a plan leans that hard on one platform, soft demand sends everyone looking for deeper reasons. Plenty of eyes turned from the sales desk toward the way the bike itself was built. If you like straight talk about where Harley's really heading, hit like, subscribe for more no BS breakdowns, and tell me what you're seeing at your local dealers, so we can compare real rider experiences, not just the corporate story today. Design trade-offs. The Street Glide 3 Limited wore its mission on its frame. Comfort first, with classic touring cues. Wide seat, tall backrest, big wind protection. Storage for long hauls. On a quick look, it checked nearly every box riders have barked about for years. Delivering that feeling meant loading up the hardware list. People close to the parts side talk about heavier rear sections, stiffer subframes, and more complex body panels. A wide rear track needs wide fenders, deep liners, and extra wiring runs. Each of those changes demands new tooling and more careful assembly steps. On the line, a trike is not just a bagger with 2 extra tires. Workers face new fixtures, new alignment checks, and stricter tolerances. Any slight miss in those areas can show up later as odd tire wear, vibrations, or handling quirks. Over time, those show up in service records, and riders notice. From the saddle, riders often love the first impression. stable at low speed, strong brakes, no need to dab a boot during slow turns. Those points matter a lot when joints ache. Still, anyone who has turned a wrench knows more systems mean more potential headaches as years pile on. Harley invested heavily to make the Street Glide 3 Limited feel like a reward for decades of riding. That effort raised the cost of every single unit before it reached the truck. With demand coming in softer than hoped, the next piece of the equation stood out under the showroom lights where no one could ignore it. Pricing the promise. Price is where dreams meet bank statements. Harley has lived in that tension for generations. Some riders will stretch for a bike that feels like a piece of their identity. Others watch every dollar because they remember when touring machines cost far less. The Street Glide 3 Limited rolled into an era of rising costs. Parts, shipping, and labor all climbed. Harley placed the Trike near the upper tier of its touring prices. Not quite the throne, but close enough that many riders felt their breath catch when they saw the tag. Finance staff across several stores reportedly saw a repeat scene. A rider liked the idea. They liked the seating and the lack of low-speed drama. They nodded along when the sales rep talked about staying on the road longer. Then, the monthly payment numbers hit the desk. Plenty of those riders already had a trusted touring rig resting in their garage. Maybe a Road King from the early 2000s. Maybe a well-kept Classic or Ultra they have dialed in over years. Those bikes might lack newer toys, but they are paid for and familiar. Every sound and quirk is known. When that reality meets a long new payment stretching deep into retirement, hesitation wins. Some buyers stepped back to the used section. Some quietly started pricing other brands with lower notes and solid reputations. The Trike had appeal, but the math undercut the emotion. In the end, the Street Glide 3 Limited asked riders to pay premium money for comfort and confidence, while larger brand questions still loomed. That is a hard sell to people who remember when machines earned trust first, then asked for loyalty. Underneath the fresh paint and bright marketing, a simple doubt kept rattling around. If you sign up for that kind of note, will the bike and the company be there for you over the years you have left to ride? Warranty trends. At first, the Street Glide 3 Limited looked solid on paper. The early months did not show a disaster in service. Still, techs in several shops started noticing certain repairs popping up more often on three-wheel tickets. Service writers talk about small patterns before big ones. Rear suspension complaints, odd tire wear on one side, rattles from body panels around the rear fenders. None of these alone mean a crisis. Together, over months, they start to feel like a trend. Anonymized tallies from a few busy dealers point the same way. A larger share of warranty lines for Trike owners involved rear hardware checks, wheel bearings, alignment verifications, fasteners along the body. Nothing spectacular, just steady and repeated. For riders, that meant extra visits for things they assumed would be rock solid. You buy a heavy touring Trike to avoid surprises, not to chase small gremlins. Sitting in a service lounge over minor but nagging issues wears patience thin. Most of these repairs were covered if they fell in time. That kept the bills down, but did not protect the brand's image with those owners. Every trip back became another story told over coffee at the diner or in a campground. Warranty records cannot tell emotion, yet they point toward irritation. Riders expect to maintain engines, brakes, and normal wear. They do not expect repeated checks on core chassis parts in the first few seasons. So the question grew louder in backrooms. Were these headaches baked into the design, or coming from how the Trike was built day to day? Supply and production strain. Once service bays see the same parts too often, eyes drift upstream. Suppliers feeding the Street Glide 3 Limited program faced a tougher brief than a basic cruiser. Wider stance, heavier components, more bodywork, and tighter fit meant less room for slop. Reports from people familiar with the chain describe a rough adjustment. Some vendors needed extra time to hit the new tolerances. That led to revised purchase orders partial shipments, and days where lines waited on key pieces. Each delay added cost before a single bike turned a wheel. Assembly crews also had to adapt in real time. Jigs designed around 2-wheel frames did not always match 3-wheel demands. New fixtures, added checks, and more complex routing for wiring and brake lines all took practice. While crews learned, rework piles grew. Internal logs from a couple of plants, according to industry sources, showed more units being pulled aside for corrections. Alignment checks failed, panel gaps missed targets, electrical checks flagged loose connections. None of this is rare in a new platform, but it narrows margins and stretches schedules. Those problems rarely stay hidden inside the walls. When dealers get word that units are late or held for extra inspection, they have to stall buyers. A delay on a simple cruiser order is one thing. A delay on a high-dollar trike turns into second thoughts for a cautious buyer. Production strain alone does not doom a model. Yet, it fuels stories riders already tell each other about modern complexity. Once that talk starts swirling, what the company says in public can steady nerves or shake them further. Messaging friction and dealer scripts. On the outside, Harley's official line stayed calm. Public statements framed the Street Glide 3 Limited as a strong entry. Nothing in press releases suggested trouble behind the scenes. For riders who only skim headlines, that might have been enough. Inside dealerships, the tone felt less clean. Sales and service staff had to walk a tightrope between optimism and honesty. Some were told to reassure worried buyers that early quirks were already ironed out. Others quietly admitted they were still waiting on clearer guidance. Riders do not live on press releases. They live on conversations and forum threads. In those spaces, screenshots of corporate responses sat right beside first-hand stories from owners. When one side said isolated and the other side listed repeat repairs, skepticism grew. Dealer memos, according to a few who saw them, sometimes softened language around known issues. The intent was to avoid panic, but the effect could backfire. When a rider hears one story from a corporate account and a slightly different one from their own dealer, trust suffers. Online, that tension shows up as mixed messaging. Some posters repeat the official line that everything is under control. Others recount 3 separate trips to the service bay. The average reader looks at both and decides which voice feels more real. In a market built on faith and heritage, conflicting stories cut deep. Clear, straight talk could have helped steady the ship. Instead, the gap between the official version and rider experience left room for someone else to step in with a simpler promise. Rival value plays accelerate. While Harley worked through Trike growing pains, other brands watched closely. They saw riders wrestling the same questions: comfort, balance, long-distance security, and price. Then they tuned their own offers to hit those nerves. Dealers for rival touring lines began pushing packages aimed right at cautious buyers: lower entry prices, long warranties, aggressive trade values for aging baggers. The message was simple: keep traveling, worry less, pay less. Promotions highlighted reliability records and mileage stories. Ad copy talked about machines crossing hundreds of thousands of miles with routine care. Some brands leaned on flat, smooth engines known for running quiet and long. The contrast to complex, premium-priced trikes was clear without ever naming them. Spec sheets told their own story to riders who still read the details. Similar or better comfort numbers, competitive storage, lighter weight in some cases, all tied to monthly payments that landed softer on fixed income budgets. For a rider who values practicality over prestige, that hits home. Harley still had the heritage card, but rivals played the value card hard. Every time a Street Glide 3 limited buyer hesitated at the payment, another option waited nearby. Enough riders took the test ride with other brands to shift word of mouth. Rival success did not just hurt unit sales. It started to carve into the story that Harley Touring held default status for long-haul riders. Once that story cracks, dealers feel it first in their showrooms and used bike rows. R&D focus shift and deferred. Upgrades. Every company has only so much engineering time to spend. When the Street Glide 3 Limited moved from sketch to prototype, it demanded its share. Reports from people close to the process say that share was large. Internal roadmaps, according to those who saw early drafts, showed planned updates for core touring models, suspension tweaks, heat management changes, small comfort fixes that long-distance riders had begged for. As the three-wheeled project grew, those boxes slid further right on the calendar. Budget lines tell the same story in quieter numbers. Money tagged for incremental touring upgrades was reassigned to get the Trike ready for launch. New tooling, extra testing, additional software work. All of that had to come from somewhere. On the showroom floor, riders may not see a spreadsheet. They see the same models, sitting year after year with only small changes. Paint schemes shift, names move a bit. Yet the bones stay familiar, while competitors update seats, screens, and geometry more often. For a rider who has owned several generations of touring machines, that feels like drift. They remember when each new cycle brought real progress, better charging systems, stronger brakes, cleaner cooling. Watching the pace slow while a complex trike takes center stage is disheartening. As those feelings spread, dealers had to decide how to shape their floors. If the core bikes are aging and the new bed is not pulling as planned, inventory choices get tricky fast. If you want to stay ahead of what Harley and the rest of the industry are really doing to riders like us, hit subscribe so you never have to guess what is coming for your garage and your wallet tomorrow. Dealer capability gaps. Selling a complex machine is only half the job. Keeping it running smoothly is the other half. With the Street Glide 3 Limited, that second part landed unevenly across the country. Some larger dealers threw their weight behind trike training early. Techs went to factory courses. Shops bought new lifts and special tools. Parts departments stocked deeper on three-wheeled components. For owners in those markets, the experience stayed fairly smooth. Smaller or stretched dealerships had a harder time. Training sessions cost money and time. Pulling your best technician off the line for several days was tough when bays were already full. In some regions, staff turnover meant hard-won skills walked out the door. As frustrations grew in pockets of the network, owners started carrying their stories beyond the counter. Some of those stories stayed private. Many walked straight into the public square of modern rider life. Owner backlash. Years ago, a disappointed owner might only grumble at home or at a diner. Today, the first stop after a rough repair is often a forum or video comment section. The Street Glide 3 Limited was no exception. Online threads began to gather posts from trike owners sharing their headaches, repeated trips for small fixes, delays waiting on parts, confusion over what was covered and what was not. Mixed in were plenty of happy miles, yet the complaints stood out in bold. Screenshots of repair invoices and dealer messages floated across groups. Riders compared notes on how their shops handled similar issues. Some felt backed up and respected. Others felt brushed off or rushed. That split fed an uncomfortable feeling for many owners. Investors and analysts do not always ride, but they read numbers. When a flagship-style model appears more often in near-new classifieds, it raises eyebrows. That shift in the secondary market fed into bigger questions facing the company's leadership, executive responses. From the outside, leadership tried to project calm. Public comments described the Street Glide 3 Limited as part of a broader plan. Words like refinement and continuous improvement appeared in interviews and investor calls. Behind the scenes, timing told a different tale. Service bulletins addressing certain quirks came later than riders expected. Clarifications on coverage sometimes arrived only after owners pressed hard. By the time some corrections showed up, frustration had already spilled across forums. Executives must balance many pressures at once. Admitting a high-profile product needs rapid adjustment can unsettle markets. Holding back too long can unsettle riders and dealers. With the Trike, those clocks did not always line up in the right order. Every month of that gap carried real cost. Dealer faith thinned in spots. Some loyal owners hardened into critics. Rivals turned those missteps into marketing lines of their own. In the push to keep numbers steady on paper, a more fragile asset took the deeper hit. Confidence in the long game began to fray. Competitors' moves. For years, Harley leaned on a myth. The idea that if a rider wanted real long-haul character, they would end up on a bar and shield tank, no matter what the market did. The stumble around the Street Glide 3 Limited gave rivals a clean shot at that story. Other brands moved fast. Their ad copy shifted toward words longtime riders care about most: reliability, proven miles, lower total cost of ownership. They started showing couples on the open road in machines that looked planted and calm, with price tags that did not choke a pension. Dealer flyers from those rivals offered targeted trade deals. Bring in your aging bagger, get generous credit toward a more straightforward touring rig. Some even dangled loyalty-style service packages, stretching maintenance coverage further than many riders were used to seeing from any big name. Harley faced a fork in the road, whether they wanted to or not. Either double down on complex premium machines and trust the core to follow, or shift attention back towards simple, durable touring that speaks to the rider who still racks up thousands of serious miles each season. Which course they choose will say more than any slogan ever could. Dealerships and labor strain, steel and marketing are only part of the equation. The people turning wrenches and talking to riders carry the weight when a product line stumbles. With the Street Glide 3 Limited, that weight landed hard on service bays. Staffing memos from several dealerships showed growing strain. Shops were already busy keeping older touring fleets alive. Adding a complex three-wheeled platform stacked new learning curves on top of an already full schedule. Pulling senior techs off regular work for Trike training created short-term gaps that riders felt as longer waits. Technician turnover added more pain. Some experienced mechanics left for independent shops or different trades, chasing steadier hours or less corporate pressure. New hires often arrived without deep background on heavy touring rigs, let alone three-wheeled geometry. Training them up while the calendar stayed slammed became a rough juggling act. When labor strain reaches that point, dealer economics begin to shift. Some owners quietly pull back on risky inventory. Others focus on used units that are simpler to service and sell. The more that happens, the less room a complex, expensive trike has to breathe in the real world. Financial aftershocks. On financial sheets, feelings turn into lines and margins. The Street Glide 3 Limited program carried serious costs from design through launch. Tooling, testing, training, and support all add up long before a single unit reaches a buyer. When the payoff softens, those numbers echo for several cycles. Guidance revisions from the company hinted at the ripple. Slight trimming here, cautious wording there. Analyst notes began to mention pressure on gross margins and the need for sharper discipline on future projects. None of it screamed disaster, though it suggested that the big trike had not become the easy win some expected. Delays and rework in early production runs also weighed on the balance sheet. Every unit held back for extra checks represents tied-up capital and lost showroom time. When a model is pitched as an important pillar, that kind of drag matters more than leadership would like to admit. Financial pressure rarely shows up on a spec sheet, yet it shapes what bikes appear on a floor 2 or 3 years down the road. The misfire around the street. Glide 3 Limited raised the stakes on every future decision. That is the quiet cost many balance sheets never fully spell out. What riders should do now. For riders standing in the garage, all of this turns into a simple question. What do you do with your money and your miles from here on out? If you already own a Street Glide 3 Limited and it serves you well, the smartest move is not panic. Keep sharp records of every service. Stay ahead on fluid changes, bearing checks, and rear hardware inspections. A well-documented machine holds value better, and gives you leverage if big issues ever arise. If you are shopping, walk into any dealership with clear eyes. Look past the paint and talk time with the service manager, not just the salesperson. Ask how many Trikes they see, what parts they keep on the shelf, and how backed up their schedule runs in peak season. Study resale listings in your region before signing anything. See how nearly new Trikes are actually moving, not just what sellers ask. Compare that pattern to older two-wheeled touring rigs you know and trust. The gap between those tracks tells you how the market really feels. Harley launched the Street Glide 3 Limited, hoping it would steady the ship for riders worried about the future. The real answer sits in your garage and your gut. Trust the miles you have ridden, listen to what the numbers quietly say, and choose the machine that respects both your pride and your wallet over the long haul. Harley's last Trike was sold as the safety net, the smart move, the way to keep you riding forever. Now you know what really happened in the boardroom, on the showroom floor, and in real garages like yours. I want to hear from you. Would you ever buy a factory Trike? Or did Harley lose the plot? Drop your story in the comments. If this breakdown helped, hit like, subscribe, and stick around. The next deep dive might save you thousands.